This is Christmas moss, and as you can probably tell, it's named after its unique Christmas tree-like shape. It grows a bright green and fans out in layers. Now, one cool thing about Christmas moss is that it's a crawling moss, which means that it doesn't really grow upwards but more evenly spread out through its sides. And because this moss can be spread out quite nicely, it's really popular amongst aquarists who want to cover the bottom of their tank or rocks or driftwood with moss. And it's actually one of my favorite for covering rocks because not only does it cover the rocks, but it also has a fluffy-like look to it that stands out against other mosses. And again, this is a bright green moss, so when shopping around for your moss, be careful not to pick up anything that has any dark coloring or faded coloring. I don't really like to plug videos, but I did come up with a really cool method for attaching this moss and virtually any other moss out there. And that I do recommend that you go watch because this moss grows best and takes on a better shape if it's attached to something. You can just Google how to attach moss to driftwood and it should be the video with the most views. Now, getting back to the care for the Christmas moss, it's a pretty easy moss to care for. Keep it with a neutral pH of around 7 and with slightly colder water temperatures, anywhere from 65 to 78 should be just fine. I'm out here in California and I actually don't run a heater in that tank and the Christmas moss grows just fine at around 76 degrees. Now, do you need CO2 or fertilizers for Christmas moss? No, as long as you're keeping some fish in the same tank, you should be just fine. Obviously, if you do dose fertilizers and CO2, you'll yield better growth, but it's not one of those mosses that'll look bad or unhealthy if you don't. I've never dosed mine and it grows actually kind of out of hand. The one thing that I don't like about this moss is that it looks really cool as it's starting to grow out, but if it starts growing out too much and too compact, you really can't see the Christmas tree-like shapes of the moss. And at that point, it just kind of looks like a bunch of moss. So I do recommend not trimming it because that's kind of a waste of moss, but definitely separating it every now and then. You can then replant it, and by doing this, you'll keep your Christmas moss looking at its best.